There's this common notion I've noticed among non-OSU players that you need fast reaction time to be able to play the game. I mean, just look at this. It's so fast. You have to have a fast reaction time to be able to click the circles, right?
What the fuck? No!
No, you don't.
Shit!
If you're just going to delete all of that and only leave a single circle, you will notice that actually you got plenty of time to react. 450 milliseconds to be exact. That's almost half a second. This time is determined by something called the approach rate, or in short, AR. What you've just seen is AR10, the fastest one, giving you the least time to react. Every subsequent one below that gives you 150 milliseconds more. As you've seen from the title, this video is about learning AR11 though, so what's up with that? Well, in OSU there exists something called mods. They are called that because they modify the gameplay. Among them is a mod called Double Time, commonly abbreviated with DT, which speeds up the gameplay. Now guess by how much? Exactly. 1.5 times. Now, given the map is AR10 giving you 455 milliseconds to react, speeding it up with DT should mean that it will only give you 300 milliseconds to react. Which it does, effectively overwriting the AR10 limit, which is also indicated by the little arrow next to it. Now that, my friends, is AR11. 150 milliseconds faster than AR10, and it's fast. Now, if you've ever done the reaction test on human benchmark, 300 milliseconds might not sound that fast to you. I mean, if you just look at that graph, apparently the average is 200 milliseconds, so should be pretty manageable, right? Well, last time I tested my reaction time, it came out at 155 milliseconds, and AR11 just kills me, man. Now, if you take a relatively simple AR11 map, on screen it doesn't really look that difficult. However, keep in mind you're looking at it, not playing it. Now, if I do this, you probably saw the 2 frames of black screen there, yet you will have a really hard time pausing the exact moment the screen is black. The point I'm making is that chances are this gameplay looks a lot simpler to you than it plays because you're retroactively processing what's going on. But I promise you, if I were to put you in front of my computer, making you play a super simple 2-star map, however it's AR11 and I held you at gunpoint, you would end up breaking down crying and then dead. If we take a look at the history of OS, it becomes quite clear just how immensely difficult AR11 is. 10 years ago, the notion seemed to be that AR11 is pretty much the limit of what is humanly possible, if even possible at all, with Emperor Penguin being like the only person mentioned when it came to discussing who can actually play it. Now obviously the game has evolved since then and we know of quite a few players actually being able to read it, the most popular one probably being Emrek, who's also the #1 player in the game right now, so that's to be expected. Surprisingly though, even today being able to read AR11 isn't a common thing, not even among top players. For example, let's take Kukizi, undoubtedly the most popular OSU player of all time, and many call him the GOAT, and well, he can't read AR11, or apparently he could at one point, according to this at least 8-year-old Q&A. I don't know. See, I'm just doing research and then stumble upon the most obscure information which completely throws the script off. In any case, as far as I'm aware, at least today he can't read beyond AR 10.4, 10.5. Okay, turns out that's actually also not accurate. Apparently, Kukizi just recently got a new monitor and yeah, he's like popping off reading above AR10. Actually, that happened 2 months ago, but yeah, sorry for the misinformation. I don't know. Point being, learning AR11 will prove to be quite the challenge, especially if that's supposed to happen in 10 days, and have I mentioned it yet? I'm ranked 95,999. I know I'm crazy, but I have a plan. The idea is simple. With some warm-up I can already play AR10 quite comfortably, and so I'm just going to play, starting with AR10 and then just bump up the AR by 0.1 every day. A difference in 0.1 is barely noticeable, and so I hope that I can get used to every AR on the way to AR11 in a day, and that's it. Sounds simple, sounds logical, and so let's see if it works.
Welcome to us.
As you can see, I'll be using laser as it has this option to adjust the AR directly, and so the first thing I did was recording a benchmark to see how I perform on AR11 currently, so I have a sort of baseline I can compare myself to. I selected a set of maps while trying to account for different skill sets. They are displayed on screen right now. Now let's get to my experience of those 10 days. I have about 19 hours of footage here and I thought a lot about what would be the best way to summarize those. In the background you're going to see the footage from the days that I will be talking about, with the corresponding AR being shown in the top left of the screen. I will make an effort to quickly go through each day and then talk about bigger findings or discussion points after. This might get a little cramped, so there will be timestamps in the description. So let's get to Day 1, AR 10.1. And honestly, it was nothing that special, so I don't really have that much to say about it. I didn't really notice the AR while playing, and I also don't think it impacted my performance in any significant way, unlike AR 10.2, which did in fact impact my performance. It was still totally playable, of course, but my performance did suffer, though not by much. An interesting observation was that I didn't actually sleep that well the night leading up to this, unlike the next day where I slept great, and so funnily enough I had an easier time on 10.3 than 10.2. I didn't feel significantly different on both of these days, like I wasn't tired or anything, but at least according to my Apple Watch I slept significantly better on day 3, like 2 hours longer, and I think double the amount of REM sleep as well. I really hope that I can investigate this further in the future once I have more data, given that there are just so many studies showing how important sleep is for cognitive function, and I don't believe OS is any exception to this. And not just for AR11, but like playing ability in general, improvement, nerves, I really do believe it's significant. Now 10.3 was still fast of course, and it did take me some time getting used to it. For example, there was this map I played at the beginning of my session, and then I played it again at the end, and I performed significantly better. There's a certain kind of stress associated with playing high AR, and it's very similar, if not the same thing as nerves, making you shake and all that, but that vanished during the session. And that concludes the first 3 days. Now, I did have experience with AR 10.3 before, given that it's just AR 9, which is the most common AR in the game as far as I'm aware, with double time. It's nothing that special, like playing AR 10.3 is quite common actually, even among 5 digits, but I still think it makes for a good first milestone just due to how prevalent it is, and especially if you're a normal player, it's not easy getting used to. Now, AR 10.4 and above is where it starts getting interesting and into more uncommon territory, at least at my rank. First off, 10.4 was fun to play, but it did start feeling like it would only go downhill from here. And so the next days were a little bit of a roller coaster. Day 5 I probably had the worst sleep, and I was super stressed at the beginning of the session. Fortunately, that did wear off, and in the end I still considered it fun to play and actually thought 10.6 would be fun as well. However, when I finally got to it, AR11 seemed further away than ever. Of course, the stress wore off during the session, a common theme, and I did in fact get comfortable with the AR. But again, that didn't change the fact that it really heavily impaired my performance. Thankfully though, when I got to AR 10.7 it was actually surprisingly fun to play. Performance was obviously still impaired, but I got comfortable with the AR super quickly and I started feeling very confident in my ability to play the upcoming ARs. However, day 8 came along and flipped that sentiment on its head. It took me almost an hour to get used to the AR, while before it would only take like 10 minutes, 50 minutes max. And trust me, it's not fun. As I've said before, when you're not used to an AR yet, it's a very stress-inducing experience, very similar to nerves. Now usually you have nerves for like the last 2 minutes of a marathon map or something, and that's already terrible, and so you can only imagine what having that for almost an hour was like for me. I was sweating, and not just in a metaphorical sense. Still, I was looking forward to the next 2 days, given that both of them were milestones. I was so close to the finish line. Like AR 10.9 or 10.87 more specifically is AR 7 with double time hard rock, which is a very common AR, especially if you want to farm leaderboard scores. Now imagine this. You're a 5-digit, getting the enormously unrealistic idea to try to learn AR11 in 10 days, arguably one of the hardest skill sets in the game, and so on day 9 just go through playing random 3-star maps with double time hard rock, stumbling upon a lot of popular maps, among them Cold Green Ice, a map that you might recognize given it has like over 40 million plays or something, and being the 23rd most played map in the entire game. You put on trial, not expecting too much of course, only to then realize after just having side-routed that you actually have the potential to set a top 50 leaderboard score in a difficulty with over 500,000 plays. Wait, I just 3-modded this, and what's my egg? 96. 3 misses. Is this leaderboardable? Now this moment kind of blew my mind. Safe to say this made me feel like an already professional AR11 player at this point, and it gave me way too much motivation to push for the leaderboard, as in I've probably tried for like an hour. Now in the end, unfortunately I didn't get a leaderboard score, however I did get pretty close getting rank 118. Oh my god, finally I did it. I don't know, this is probably not a leaderboard score, but I don't care. Yeah, it's 118. But man, I finally have seen it, holy shit. This took way too fucking long. In any case, this whole ordeal made me feel like I've just unlocked this playstyle. Like, not only was it super fun, but it actually made me realize that I already had the potential to actually go for these kinds of leaderboard scores, which is crazy. I mean, I'm a 5-digit, almost 6-digit, like, what? This was so good. Obviously, I was super hyped up for AR11 now, and whoa, the grind didn't stop. This session clocked in at almost 4 hours, the longest by far, and in it, not only did I improve my score from the day before, getting rank 68 on the leaderboard. 68! I'm so close. But I also set another score, this one being AR11, and I got PP from it. I just farmed 3-mod. Holy shit. I'm rank 77 as well. That's crazy. Like, not a lot at all, but it's in my top 100. In fact, it gave me more PP than my 2.7k combo on Through the Fire in Flames. Certainly a banger end to these 10 days that I didn't expect at all. During the session I also played around with some other elements, like Gamma and Hidden, and how that would affect the gameplay, and I will talk more about these later. Now, if I actually learned AR11 during these 10 days is debatable. Like, what does it mean to have learned AR11? I can side-read some 4-star and low 5-star maps, sure, but I don't think I was able to pass a single 6-star map at that AR, which is usually not a problem at all at AR10 and below. Did I at least improve my AR11 abilities though? Well, according to the benchmark, I performed worse. Not by a significant amount, fortunately, but it was on 4 out of 5 maps where I performed worse. Here's the thing, I kind of made a mistake with my initial benchmark, and that mistake was I wasn't warmed up. Now, if you're a mere mortal human being, AR11 is something that you have to warm up for, unlike MREC probably. And so to replicate the initial test conditions, I couldn't warm up for my latter benchmark either. Now, I did play these benchmark maps again once I was warmed up, and then the results were flipped, performing better on 4 out of 5 maps. But of course, I would perform better when warmed up. Unfortunately, this means that, at least statistically speaking, I probably didn't improve that much of at all. I know my way of benchmarking is somewhat faulty here, but I do think there's a very real chance I could have set these scores on day 1 if I warmed up. It would have just been way more daunting to jump into AR11 directly like this. In any case, what is the state of things after these 10 days? Well, this experience showed me that AR11 is totally playable for me and lots of fun too. In fact, I will actually continue playing exclusively AR11 from now on. Maybe go for some leaderboard scores and see where this leads me. I'm planning to live stream this too, and then maybe make a follow-up video for like 30 days of playing AR11 or something like that. It would also give me a lot more opportunities to discover correlations with sleep, reaction time, that kind of stuff. I think there's actually a huge gap in content there in the OS community. Like, it's such a mechanics-based game, and I think looking more in the science of how certain health parameters might correlate with performance, looking into nootropics, that kind of stuff, I think that would be very interesting, and there's definitely lots of potential there. Actually, I tried measuring my reaction time on a regular basis while doing this, but unfortunately I wasn't that consistent with my measurements. There's a graph on screen, and on first glance there don't seem to be any correlations here, but 10 days also just don't provide enough data to make any conclusive statements. I also tried to look into reaction times from notable players. For example, Shige's is just absolutely terrible, dare I say terrifying, while Matrix is on the other hand, one of the OGs when it comes to AR11, apparently averages around 165. MRX is supposedly anywhere between 140 and 220 milliseconds. If anyone has more reliable information on that, please tell me. And I for myself averaged around 177 milliseconds. In general, I think measuring reaction time is a double-edged sword. Like, it's going to vary already just based on hardware, meaning comparing yourself to others isn't really viable. But then at the same time, you use that same hardware to play AR11, so maybe it is valid to make conclusions based on that. Gamma. I didn't play with Gamma the whole time except on the last day with AR11, where I tried it for like an hour or so and it didn't seem to make much of a difference. Now my monitor brightness is already quite high and the skin I'm using is very optimized, so that might be why. I did end up turning it off as the first 2 seconds of the map are essentially playing without background dim, which is very off-putting, especially at a high AR. Hidden. This was interesting. Now there are a lot of people saying AR11 is easier with hidden, and I always considered that to be a myth. I know 3 mod is a very common mod combination, but I tend to say that's due to AR11 making hidden easier, not the other way around. And because I absolutely hate hidden, I didn't play with it until I started going for leaderboard scores, so the last 2 days. At first I didn't really notice a difference, but then retrospectively I noticed that I performed significantly better on hidden. This discovery kind of blew my mind. I mean, as far as I'm aware, you still only get 300 milliseconds to react, so there shouldn't be a difference, but there was one. At least in my case, hidden really does seem to make AR11 easier. OD. A possible concern when playing 3 mod might be the OD, which stands for overall difficulty. Higher OD essentially just narrows the hit window of hit objects, making it harder to get a good accuracy. Personally, I've just completely disregarded it, and I'm fine, so I don't think it's going to be a big issue, at least in the beginning. But also I don't really give a fuck about accuracy at all, so Memorization. During these whole 10 days I made an effort to really focus mostly on just sight reading maps, and I very much believe that sight reading AR11 is possible. Even when I retry spam Cold Green Eyes to go for the leaderboard score, I can't say that there was any significant amount of memorization involved. There's however one thing that might be mistaken for memorization, which is gaining an understanding of the map. When you play a map, you're not just reading it, but you're also building up an understanding of the rhythms, common patterns, that kind of stuff. It's not something you do consciously, but on high AR it feels like you're constantly trying to predict the next pattern, more so for the tapping than the aiming, and it does get easier the longer you play a map. This is especially useful when it comes to bursts or the start of streams. Reason being is that you process these kinds of patterns differently, because you need to adjust your tapping technique. It's hard to explain and can almost warrant its own video. How to learn AR11. On first glance, there seem to be 2 ways to go about this, either brute forcing it or building up to it. What I did was building up to it, and as we found out, that might not have been necessary. In any case, I don't believe that one is necessarily superior to the other, and it's mostly just personal preference. I know the title of this video is about learning AR11, but there are also other noteworthy milestones to go for. As I said before, 10.3 for example is a very common AR. If you're able to play 10.67, then it includes everything up to 9.5 with double time. AR 10.87 is AR7 with double time hard rock, and there is probably quite easy to learn, as most of those maps range between 4 and 5 stars, making it a very good stepping stone towards AR11. I do think that AR11 is a viable playstyle for more players than one might expect. If I've shown anything today, it's that you definitely don't need to be a top player to play it. However, I also don't think it's for everyone either. Not that I want to gatekeep this, but I doubt you're going to have much fun with trying to learn AR11 if you're significantly below 4000 PP or can't pass 7-star maps yet. Even when playing just 3 to 4-star maps, AR11 does raise the bar for mechanics needed to play them. If you're also heavily interested in nerding out about this kind of stuff, then you might want to consider subscribing to be notified when I drop a new video on this, and perhaps even joining my Discord to participate in discussion. Actually, my Discord is quite small right now, but if we can manage to build a community, I'm considering to make like small-scale studies. No one has done this before, and I think that could be very interesting. Now, this video has taken a very long time to produce, so genuinely, thank you for watching until the very end. It means a lot to me, and yeah, see ya. The thing is, I can play all of these maps reasonably well with free mods at AR11, so it's fun. And this is the most important part. Regardless how well I can play it, it feels fun.